if you look at that 425 new residences in that period, 75 are not principal residences and 350 are principal residences. And if you look more closely at that 350, 345 of those residences are owner-occupied. So just under 99% of new principal residences on Bowen Island are owner-occupied. 5 are renter-occupied. So just over 1% of the new principal residences on this island
Or rental.
are rental. And I mean, that's pretty shocking.
Yeah.
So you think about that in terms of housing diversity. And I mean, the clear message is that something needs to be done on the rental side. And I think we've known that, and we've shown support as a council for the development of rental accommodation. So on the 29th of this month, Census will be releasing the mobility and migration statistics for the country. So essentially what that gets at is the degree of churn, how much turnover there has been in the population in that last 5-year period. We'll actually only be able to get that probably it'll be like 10 years, because there's that gap in 2011 when we didn't do the National Housing Survey. So in looking at this, there's the impulse to say something about, there are more investment homes, there are more short-term rentals and so on, but you actually can't determine that based on this information. An investment home could go out, it could be rented out to a long-term tenant and therefore captured as a primary residence. And you really can't determine from this that short-term rentals are having an impact on the rental pool. You can definitely say that the rental pool has failed to keep pace with population growth. You can definitely say that rental options are down, both proportionately and in absolute numbers. And I think you can very safely conclude that this situation has forced people to leave the island because there aren't homes for them. That's it. So I would like to see a Municipal Housing Advisory Committee established to help us move forward with Strategic Plan Priority D1. I realize that it will take some time to put that in place. We will need terms of reference, we'll need to advertise for members, we'll need to think in terms of who needs to be on this committee, what's the skill set, what are the tasks that we would want them to accomplish in the coming year. So I don't see this happening in a week or a month. It's probably post-strategic planning session, but I would like us to make the commitment to do so.
But I'd like to,
Put Melanie in answer.
I'd love to see this discussed at strategic planning, because I think it could help with some of our other pillars. So I think this is I hope that is something that we do discuss. I think the points you've made about rental are very well established, and I think that would be, it'd be great if that could be the core mandate of the committee, really looking at that. But I think we've also need to start exploring that 345 of the owner-occupied. The single detached house is definitely dominant, and I think we've seen over the last year, 2 years, that that's become, it's now out of the average affordable range. So that also is a topic that needs to be discussed, but probably secondary to the rental issue. But I think it's also, we need to tease out more information about or how housing, like affordable ownership on the island. I think we've seen a decrease in that, in this sort of range. So, but yeah, fully in support.
Alison?
So one other stat that is maybe missing in here is which I used to keep and I've stopped doing, was the number of, looking at BC assessment numbers, and the number of lots and the number of new dwellings created, because private dwellings could be an apartment or a standalone house or a townhouse or a duplex or whatever. So it would just be interesting to look at that. I've got the information and I was used to track it, but I haven't lately. Then another question which has to do with the census data. We didn't all fill out long form census reports, did we? Was it?
No.
Was it voluntary, or was it some people got them and some people didn't?
this year, it was mandatory if you got it.
So how, do
If
we
you
know
got
how
it.
many got it and filled it out?
I don't.
I think it's something like 1 in 4 or something like that.
Yeah.
They have percentages that are 100%. 100% of people respond to this and 25% respond to other questions. I'm sorry, I'm conscious of the time here.
Yeah, okay, so that was just a curiosity. And I think this is something that should be on our strategic planning agenda so that it's an actual step in achieving the housing objective.
I'd like to move the recommendation then.
I'll
I
second
just
it.
have one question.
Yes, ma'am.
I just wondered, how did you see the housing committee, what would be their role in the rezoning of, say, Lot 1?
I think that will take more than
Yeah.
the time that we've got here.
Given our time constraints, I mean, I would like to see this referred to our strategic planning session
Yes.
and not deal with it, try to deal with it today at all, because it's such a,
No,
it's
sir.
going to be a cornerstone, I think, of our strategic plan for the fall.
It'll be the most important committee we have.
Yeah, and so whether or not we have
Could
a
I-
motion saying we're going to
Could I ask a
establish
yes
one.
or no question? Do you see the housing committee being involved in the rezoning of some of our larger
Yeah.
community lands?
Yeah.
Yes.
So I guess the question then is whether we want to make the commitment to establish a municipal housing advisory committee, or whether we want to defer this and talk about it at the strategic planning session.
Well, not to speak in any way against it. I mean, if we're going, I think that I gather the opinion is that we should, and are we going to just simply put it onto our strategic plan? As I said, and that's not to not speak in support of this very clearly. I just would welcome the opportunity, rather than having to look at the clock,
Yeah.
to be able to do it in a more strategic setting where we can put this together, I think, more meaningfully.
I'd be prepared to second Maureen's motion if it hasn't been seconded, and ask for consideration to add, and that the role of the Housing Advisory Committee be considered in the Island Plan 2018.
I seconded the motion and I was going to suggest we add and refer to strategic planning session. So
Whichever.
it's- yeah.
Sure.
I'm comfortable with that.
It's an open-ended discussion there, it's not limited to just something.
Sure, we're going to establish it, and we're going to refer it to strategic planning
As
session.
to how we're going to do
I
it.
think we've chatted enough about that. We have a seconder?
I seconded the motion.
Okay.
Allison did, yeah.
Yes. Can I call the question? Thank you. It's passed unanimously.
Thank you.
Okay, so unfortunately, it's 11:30. Unless we have, is there anybody who is here for the public hearing who would like it to be dealt with now before we do a couple more items on the agenda?
I thought we had to hold the public hearing afterwards. We didn't.
Really?
We
Okay, so, sorry folks, the
Do we need to
council
move to
council meeting
recess?
is recessed.
Yeah.
To reconvene after the public hearing. And the public hearing, it being 11:30, is now called to order. So, somewhere here, I have that thing I get to read.
We do a tape recording.
Yeah, right.
No disrespect.
Okay. Do we still have quorum?